Hello, and welcome to Channel 5000. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Becca.
And today marks the anniversary of when Japan attacked America on the Philippine Islands in 1942.
The invasion of the Philippines occurred on December 8, 1941, 10 hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Because of this, America was forced to join the war.
Japanese soldiers attacked American and Filipino soldiers unexpectedly. This caused 72,000 American soldiers to surrender.
Now to Bell, more on the surrender.
On April 9, 1942, 72,000 American and Filipino prisoners of war were forced to march in what was now known as the Bataan Death March. Horrible conditions and harsh treatment towards the prisoners of war resulted in about 7,000 to 10,000 deaths. Hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japanese also attacked American-held air bases in the Philippines. After attacks on the air bases, Japanese moved in by foot. This forced American and Filipino soldiers to move back into the jungle areas. In doing so, the Japanese had cut off all sources of food and water. They used what they had left by rationing it. First half rations, then third, then fourth. They did this for 3 months. After holding out for 3 months, they had General Edward P. King sign the surrender document, ending the Battle of Bataan. The march began almost immediately. The goal of the march was to get the 72,000 prisoners of war from Marivilles to O'Donnell. The prisoners were broken up into groups of 100. For one group, it would take 5 days to reach O'Donnell. Each group was assigned Japanese guards who gave prisoners no water and little food. There were wells along the way with clean water, but the Japanese guards shot anyone who got out of the line that was formed. People who were starving before the march began were given just a few spoons of rice for the long march. Filipino civilians threw food at the marching prisoners but would get shot for helping. During the march, there was a torture called the sun treatment, where prisoners would have to sit out in the sun for hours without any shade. They became ill from malnutrition, while others had been wounded from the jungle, which made them weak. Japanese had what was called buzzard squads, who would kill the one who couldn't keep up. Throughout the march, random brutality was common. Deaths during the march were common. If someone died, prisoners would have to carry the bodies to the camp. When they reached San Fernando, they were loaded into boxcars, where they would arrive at Capaz. Upon arriving, only 54,000 prisoners made it. I'm Belle Flanagan. We'll head back to the studio with Becca and Natalie. This has been a special report. Thanks for joining me on Channel 5000.
Before he surrendered to Japan, General MacArthur managed to flee, stating his famous words, "I shall return."
3 years later, while the Philippines were under Japanese control, MacArthur fulfilled his promise by bringing an army to liberate the camps. He came through this promise 2 years later, on October 20th, 1944. He brought along a force of 700 vessels and 174,000 men. Later in December of that year, Japanese soldiers were cleared of 2 main islands.
This has been a special report by Natalie, Becca, and Belle. Thanks for watching Channel 5000. Before he surrendered to Japan, General MacArthur managed to flee, stating his famous words, "I shall return."
3 years later, while the Philippines were under Japanese control.
What's wrong with you?
I was zoning out.
Like, she gonna start reading? Say hello, Belle.
Hello, Belle. Hey, you moved the chair.
And then I went down to the shore and ate some bananas. Okay, that's good.